All right, thanks for bearing with me. I had, I mean, in all honesty, right? I ate a granola bar and a little piece of the seed. This is what happens when you try to eat healthy. The little piece of seed got stuck in my throat. So there you go, right? You know, who says that healthy eating won't kill you? Anyway, I digress. Back here, I I was talking about our children's anxiety response, right? Fight, fight, freeze, and how to identify maybe what's going on with your child. So, um, fight, very, very kind of easy to see. Like I was saying, it could be screaming, it can be hitting, kicking, punching. Um, Talking back, I notice as children age, like they get into their teens, they start to become a little bit more talky backy, sarcastic, sassy, right? Because they're no longer maybe fighting with their bodies, but they're fighting with their words. And so sometimes that's important to think about too, like, oh, this, they used to hit and kick and they don't do that anymore. But, there's verbal fight as well. One of the things that I notice, especially with my youngest daughters, is she's my oldest daughter, she balls her hands up into fists, right? She just has that reaction, just starts to ball up and clench up, and you can see their body start to tense and clench up. And that's an indicator for me that there's some kind of anxiety response. My oldest daughter is a fighter. When she is feeling anxious, she fights. She's ready to go, and that can be a tough one, right? So what does flight look like, right? Some common things to look for, the darting of the eyes, like, they're not connecting to you. They start to kind of withdraw. They might become fidgety or restless, right? Because their body is wanting to flight. They want to escape. So, they have all this blood pumping into their muscles, getting them ready to run. They want to leave the situation. So there's kind of some escapism. I don't want to be here anymore, Mom. I just want to go, Mom. That type of thing, right? I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to this. All of a sudden something, they have some kind of association maybe with a place. So they're going to try to avoid it. And if they go there, they're going to try to get out of there, right? So running and darting out of situations, we'll see kids bolt, right? Like, oh my gosh, Johnny, come back, right? So, Johnny's running into traffic. Oh my gosh. So it's that type of thing. So looking for those things. Freeze. That is like holding your breath, that real shallow breathing, or, that kind of response where your body literally freezes, right? Your muscles tense up. You start to shut down, right? You'll see kids just shut down and become really quiet. They will withdraw. And then one thing that I was reading about this, which I thought was interesting to mention, was whining is considered a stalling tactic or a freezing tactic because they're trying to stall whatever's happening around them. So whining could be part of that freeze response as well. So some things to think about, how does my child show up when they're having anxiety? So our kids don't understand what triggers are for the most part, right? We teach them those things, or they learn them in therapy. Those are all skills, right? We are adults. We understand those concepts of triggers and reactions and thoughts and reactions and things like that. But, 8-year-olds have no idea of these concepts. If you ask a 7-year-old what a trigger is, they're not going to know. What's a trigger? I don't know. So, this is something that we teach them over time, and they work with their therapist on, or a skill builder, whatever that looks like for your children. So, as parents, what we can do is try to identify them, right? We can take a look at those situations and see if we can start finding some common themes. When something happens to, my child, maybe that the result of an interaction can cause anxiety, right? Going to school, social settings, right? Those things can cause anxiety, and we can see those like every time that, let's say Johnny has to go take a math test, Johnny gets anxiety, right? The trigger is the test. So we can identify that. And then we can, look at that, and we can identify it in ourselves too, right? If we are struggling, it's really crucial to know our triggers. We've got to know what's going to set us off. That's really important. So as we become more mindful of these situations, we can, and get awareness of these situations, we can teach these strategies to our children as well. Let them know, wow, it seems like, you're really struggling when there's a test coming up. and start to engage in that conversation, ask questions, get curious, right? So anxiety is a part of life, and there's a biological reason we feel anxiety, and some of that is normal, right? But when it gets to a point where it's impacting function or impacting our daily lives or impacting the daily lives of our children, that's when it becomes a really big problem. So, anxiety, there's different ways to treat that. Some people use medication, some people use psychotherapy, some people just use yoga, mindfulness. Cool. Whatever helps you be able to function better and is effective and doesn't hurt you or anybody else is fantastic. Whatever that looks like, no judgment, right? But what we have to understand is anxiety is a normal part of life. And our children and ourselves, we're going to be put in situations where we may have this response. But how do we build tolerance to those triggers or stressors in our life, right? That's the thing that we have to start to learn how to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that can be really, really tough, especially if it's something you can't avoid in life. So my oldest child has phobia-specific anxiety. She's afraid of bugs. We can't avoid bugs. Bugs are everywhere. Spiders in the house, ants, flies, it's life. We can't avoid that type of trigger, right? And her response used to be very, very severe in terms of actually shutting herself in her room. And it's very scary to see such a strong response to something that, as an adult, logically, I know that bugs exist. Now she can go and squish spiders about 75% of the time, which is huge, right? It took a lot of therapy and exposure and distress intolerance work and coping skills to be able to get to that place, right? And that's where, we have to have some goals around how we're going to help our children and help ourselves manage our anxiety. So what are triggers for you? What are some common triggers for your kiddos, that may